Next, after we know about the organization of the Codex, we want to know how Codex elaborate the standards and how we want to begin a new standard and which way does Codex starts working on it. So when a certain country they want to consider a new work, where there is a falls within the mandate of the Codex, the CAC should have due regard to first, it must be protect the consumer health. That's the statute of the Codex. Prevent the fraudulent practices. This CAC need to harmonize the diversify national legislation, look at under the volume of production and consumption, also on the pattern of trade, and also international and regional market potential. When you want to recommend a new work, so when promoting the elaboration of a new standard or the revision to an existing one, a country should, number one, they have to confirm that the proposed work falls within the thought of the community. For example, if they want to make a food standards for oil and fats just now, okay, so that's the thought of the communities, not the general communities, not the coordinating communities, and as well as the ad hoc committee. So they know which the proposal which falls under which thought. It must be within the thought. Number two, if the country want to recommend a new work or want to do the revision, they have to determine whether the standard under consideration is globally applicable or is more appropriate for use at their region level also. Just on the general level. And number three, they have to assess the proposed work against the relevant criteria for established work priorities. So these are the three of things that we need to consider when we want to recommend a new work on the food standard. Number four, also, they have to verify that the proposed work falls within the priorities that were established by the Commission in the strategic plan of work. Every year, they will come for the communities and make sure that the one that they have proposed is falls within their priorities. Number five, determine if there are any specific relevant strategic project currently are being undertaken on the Commission. Number six, determine the feasibility of completing the work within a reasonable period of time. If they want to propose a new work, make sure that they complete within a reasonable period of time. And of course, if you want to recommend a new work, a new food standard, they need for an availability of scientific evidence. This is the must. It's very important in order for host country to recommend a new work. So this all new work, okay, must be approved. You know the decision maker, the commission, the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And the proposal for new work usually originate at the committee level and are transmitted to the commission by means of a project document. Okay, so they want to have a new standard. Then they come out with a project document. So almost all new work undertaken by any subsidiary body, they require the first step, which is the preparation of project document. So this project document is actually the basis of the community consideration of the proposed work. It's actually the basis upon which the commission will make its decision as to whether or not to approve the new work. And also this project document is a key to the executive committee's critical review process as part of its standards management function. And of course, this project document is the responsibility of the members proposing the new work. However, there are certain exceptions for certain project document, which means there are certain exception of the requirement of project document, which means that the proposal for new work or revision of individual maximum residue limit for pesticide and veterinary drugs. They no need for the project document. The maintenance of general standard on food additives and on contaminants and toxin in food, and also maintenance of food categorization system and international numbering system. So for these three, they are not required to have a project document. However, in those circumstances, approval by the Commission of the relevant work is still required. Again, to propose a new work, the country has to take the first step, which is to develop the project document, to have a project document. However, there are certain exceptions, which is the proposal of MRL of pesticide and veterinary drugs, maintenance of the general standards on food additives and on contaminants and toxin in food, and also the maintenance of food categorization system. It's not a proposal, it's a maintenance. And however, certain circumstances, they still need to get approval from the commission, the decision maker. There are 9 items or 9 components for the project document. Of course, you want to prepare a new work. You must have a purpose. You must have the scope of the proposed standard. Number 1. Number 2, why you need this project document? Why you need this new work? Its relevancy and also the timeliness. Number 3, the main aspect to be covered. Number 4, there must be an assessment against the criteria for the establishment of food priorities. Number 5, relevance to the Codex strategy objectives. Number 6, components, the information on the relation between the proposal on and other existing Codex documents. Number 7, identification of any requirement for an availability of expert scientific evidence. Number 8, identification of any need for technical input to the standards from external bodies so that it can be planned for. And number 9, the proposed timeline for completion of the network. So these are the 9 components of a project document that must be followed by the country to propose a new work. So what happened once the project document is prepared and the CAC has agreed that the work should begin on a standard? You dah buat proposal, you dah buat project document, the CC executive dah tengok, look at, and then hantar ke CAC, the commission, and commission agreed the work should begin on a standard. This is just a proposal, the proposal. So the CAC should agree which committee is responsible for developing the standard and guiding it through the 5 or 8 step procedure. Then, they send the project document. Then the commission agree and which committee that should be responsible for this development standard. And they are 5 to 8 step procedure. And this is a very important stage, occurs immediately after the project document is prepared. For example, there is a country, a group of countries must prepare a first draft or the standard to be considered through the step process. So these are the 8 steps, the 8 steps after the project document, where the normal procedure 8 steps, and sometimes they have what we call an accelerated procedures. There are 5 steps. So the normal elaboration process follows 8 distinct steps that involve 2 rounds of comments by members. And you can see actually the accelerated procedure, it only skips 1 step actually. It only comment by members only 1 round. But the 8 steps, it means that they have to go through 2 comments by the members. So a decision may be taken at step 5. Whether they have to omit the second round of comments or they just can be approved or just reject the new work. It can be decided at the beginning to follow the accelerated 5-step procedure with only 1 round of government comments. So these are the 5 steps. If you can see here, number 1, the step 1, they have decision to elaborate a standard. So the decision of standard, step 2, they have to prepare the proposed draft standard. Then after they prepare the proposed draft standard, that draft was sent to the Codex members for comment. Okay. Then the Codex comment on the proposed draft. And what happened in the step 5? The commission for adoption as a draft standard. So the draft standard sent to Codex members for comment again, and then comments to the committee, and last adoption as a Codex standard. So this is the 8-step procedure, elaborating the process. Okay. And however, okay, this is standard. Okay. So you can see here, it starts with the initial proposal, and then discussion paper, then project proposal. So this happen at the community level, the subsidiary bodies. Okay. And then after that, they will go to the executive committee, which is the critical review, where they look at the criteria, the priorities, whether they want to proceed. Okay. If they want to proceed, then they go to the committee and task force. If not, they will revise or abandon. Okay. So in the committee and task force, okay, they will go either 8 or 5-step procedure. This will be a consultation with government and interested parties and committee debate. So at this stage, then of course there will be approval from the commission. Okay, and then of course there will have a midterm review, endorsement, and also final standard guideline. Okay, these are happen at the commission level. So start at the committee, and the critical review by the executive committee, elaboration by the committee and task force, whether they have to go to 8-step procedure or 5-step procedure, and finally they will get approval from the commission. The 5-step procedure is just one round of comment, okay, where they decide the elaboration standard, prepare a proposed draft standard, and the draft standard sent to Codex members for comment. That's comments to committee, and then finally they just straight away adoption to a Codex standard. They don't have a draft standard. They just straight away skip number 6, 7, because just go for the step number 8, which is adoption as a Codex standard. Okay, that's if you want to do a new work. What happen if you want to do the amendment? So amendment to the rule of procedure is actually usually do not go through the Codex step procedure and do not require the project document. So as mentioned just now, there are 3 situations that we don't need to have a project document, and the number 4 including the amendment. The amendment also do not require a project document. And these proposed amendments are considered by the Codex Committee on general principles, and recommendations for revision go from that committee to the commission. Okay, in summary, okay, when a country proposes to elaborate a standard, it should consider number 1, priorities that were established by the Commission in the strategic plan of work. Is there any specific relevant strategic project currently being taken by the CAC? The criteria for the establishment of work priorities, and the guidance for preparing project documents. The proposal for new work originate at the committee level and are transmitted to the commission by means of a project document. And there are 9 items in the project document, and that will provide the information required by the commission to determine whether or not the work should be approved. Once the committee starts to elaborate a standard whose development has been approved by the commission, taking into account the advice from the executive, there is a precise procedure to be followed, whether it is an 8-step procedure or an accelerated 5-step procedure. And we have to remember that amendments to the Codex Procedural Manual usually don't go through the step procedure.